Everybody, welcome to the pharmacology class. I am Dr. Damodaри. Today's topic is Introduction to Endocrines and Anterior Pituitary Hormones. What is meant by endocrines? Endocrines are the specialized glands that are which secretes the hormones, and they are ductless glands. They synthesize and store and release the hormones directly into the blood. So they are known as endocrine glands. And there are some glands which are not endocrines, but they are having specialized cells, that is GIT hormones, that is gastrin. Gastrin is secreted by the specialized cells of the gastric gut. And coming to the what is meant by hormone. Hormone is derived from a Greek word. Hormo means to impel, that is to insist. These hormones, they will insist the organs to perform their duties by the help of the hormones. So coming to the these hormones are the specialized substances synthesized by the endocrine glands, and these hormones are important for the maintenance of the various functions of the body, such as growth and development, metabolism, to overcome stress, and reproduction. Metabolism means metabolism of the glucose metabolism, water metabolism, and lipid metabolism. Coming to the what are the hormones that are important for the growth and metabolism or growth and development are growth hormone and thyroid hormone. The hormones which are responsible for the metabolism of glucose are insulin, glucagon, growth hormone, and somatostatin. And the hormones which are responsible for the calcium metabolism are parathormone and calcitonin, and also vitamin D. Water, the hormones which are important for the water metabolism are aldosterone and vasopressin. Coming to the hormones which are responsible to overcome the stress are glucocorticoids. And the hormones which are responsible for the reproduction are sex hormones. Those sex hormones are the gonadal hormones, that is testosterone in males and estrogen and progesterone in females. These hormones, they are grouped into 5 classes. Is the hormones, number 1 is amino acid derivatives. The examples for amino acid derivatives are catecholamine and dopamine and thyroid hormones. These 3 hormones belongs to amino acid derivatives. The second group are peptides. The examples for peptide hormones are hypothalamic regulatory hormones. That is, the regulatory hormones are secreted by the hypothalamus. All the regulatory hormones belongs to peptides. And next one is the somatostatin and vasopressin. The third group are proteins. Examples for proteins are growth hormone, parathormone, and insulin. And next group are steroids. Steroidal hormones are cortical hormones and gonadal hormones. These two belongs to steroids. And the fifth one are the vitamin derived hormones. Those are vitamin D and retinoids. So these are the 5 groups of categories under which these hormones belongs to. And the hormones, they may act on the same endocrine glands or they may act directly on the tissues. Examples, hormones which acts on endocrine glands are hormones secreted by the hypothalamus. They act directly on the pituitary. So the hormones which acts directly on tissues are insulin and prolactin. And this is the picture of the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary gland. So hypothalamus is situated in the brain, and through adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis, it is having connections with the anterior pituitary. Especially adenohypophysis is responsible for the release of the factors or hormones secreted by the hypothalamus to the anterior pituitary, and neurohypophysis is responsible for the release of the posterior pituitary hormones which are secreted by the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus secretes the releasing hormones, and these hormones are stored in the median eminence, whereas the posterior pituitary hormones, those are secreted by the synthesized and secreted by the hypothalamus, but they are stored in the posterior pituitary. Those are oxytocin and vasopressin. So coming to the anterior pituitary hormones, the growth hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, follicular stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and prolactin. These 6 hormones are secreted by the anterior pituitary. And the growth hormone, the target tissue for growth hormone is mainly on liver, and the adrenocorticotropic hormone, it will act on the adrenal gland, whereas thyroid hormone, it acts on the thyroid gland for the release of the thyroid hormones from the gland. And follicular stimulating hormone, it will act on the ovary, whereas luteinizing hormone in females, it acts on ovary, and in males, it acts on the testes. Coming to the prolactin, especially the target tissue for prolactin is breast tissue. The hormones, that is growth hormone and the prolactin, are synthesized by the acidophil cells. The pituitary gland is divided into acidophil cells and basophil cells depending upon the strain. The acidophil cells, they synthesize the hormones, growth hormone and prolactin. So these hormones, they will act directly on the target tissues, whereas the luteinizing hormone, follicular stimulating hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, and adrenocorticotropic hormone, all these are synthesized by the basophil cells, and they will stimulate the peripheral endocrine glands, and through the peripheral endocrine glands, the hormones are released into the body, and they will act on the target tissues. The middle one, except growth hormone and prolactin, the other hormones, they won't act directly on the target tissues. They stimulate the peripheral endocrine glands, and the hormones released by the peripheral endocrine glands will act on the target tissues. And coming to the, what are the factors that are released from the hypothalamus? That is growth hormone releasing hormone and growth hormone release inhibitory hormone or factor. Growth hormone releasing hormone and growth hormone releasing inhibitory hormone, these two will act on the release of the growth hormone by the anterior pituitary. Second factor is the thyrotropic hormone, corticotropic hormone, and gonadotropic hormone, and prolactin releasing hormone. That is the prolactin releasing, there is no separate prolactin releasing hormone or factor, but thyrotropic hormone will act as a prolactin releasing hormone. And the dopamine will act as the prolactin release inhibitory hormone. All the factors which are secreted by the hypothalamus are peptide in nature, whereas only the dopamine, that is prolactin release inhibitory hormone, is an amine. All these factors, they are synthesized by the hypothalamus and released by the hypothalamus, and they will act on the anterior pituitary gland. Anterior pituitary gland is a big endocrine gland. And all the factors hormones of the hypothalamus are under the control of the central neurotransmitters. That is dopamine, 5-hydroxy, tryptamine, and noradrenaline. All these central neurotransmitters, they have their effect on the release and synthesis of the hormones or factors by the hypothalamus. What are the hormones of the peripheral endocrine glands? The peripheral endocrine glands are the thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal gland, and gonads and pancreas. So, what are the hormones that are released by the peripheral endocrine glands? The thyroid will release the thyroxine and triiodothyronine. The parathyroid gland releases the parathormone, and adrenal gland. Adrenal gland, the cortex is responsible for the synthesis and release of the glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids and dehydroepiandrosterone. The medulla is responsible for the synthesis and release of the adrenaline and noradrenaline. The gonadal hormones are releases the testosterone in males, and the ovaries, they will synthesize and release the estrogens and progestins. Coming to the pancreas, pancreas is responsible for the synthesis and release of the insulin, glucagon, somatostatin. And apart from this, placenta during pregnancy, the placenta will act as endocrine gland, and it will synthesize estrogens, progesterone, lactogen, prolactin, chorionic gonadotropins, and chorionic thyrotropin. All these hormones are responsible for the development of the fetus. And coming to the how these hormones are released from the target glands onto the target tissues. All these are having both the positive feedback mechanism and negative feedback mechanism. So they are synthesized in the glands and they are released. Their release is not continuous. Their release is in pulsatile manner. That is depending upon the concentration of the peripheral hormones. The hormonal release depends upon the concentration of the peripheral concentration of the plasma concentration of the hormones. So the hypothalamus, it will pour its secretions on the anterior pituitary through the release of the releasing factors. So whenever the anterior pituitary hormones concentration is less in the plasma, so it will stimulate the hypothalamus to secrete its hypothalamo releasing factors. So there are two types of feedback mechanisms: positive feedback mechanism and negative feedback mechanism. Positive feedback mechanism means whenever the plasma concentration is low, the target gland will secrete its hormones into the blood, and whenever the concentration is whenever the plasma concentration is up to the mark, and it will inhibit the target gland, that is negative. This dotted line indicates the negative feedback mechanism. So it is the feedback mechanisms are three types: long feedback mechanism, short feedback mechanism, and ultra short feedback mechanism. For example, if the estrogens and progesterone levels are sufficient in the plasma, then they are having their inhibitory action on hypothalamus and anterior pituitary. The negative feedback mechanism exerted by the peripheral tissue on hypothalamus is long feedback mechanism, and its actions on anterior pituitary is short feedback mechanism. The ultra short feedback mechanism is the mechanism exerted by the anterior pituitary on hypothalamus. So whenever the need is there, these hormones are released from the target glands. Coming to the mechanism of action of hormones. These hormones, they will act through the receptors. There are three types of receptors. Number one, cell membrane receptors. Two, cytoplasmic receptors. And the third one is the nuclear receptor. The cell membrane receptors, they present on the cell membrane. Examples for hormones which acts through the cell membrane receptors are all the hormones of anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary and insulin. They will act through the cell membrane receptors. And coming to the cytoplasmic receptors, the steroidal hormones. That is steroidal hormones, hormones secreted by the adrenal gland and hormones secreted by the gonads. They will act through the cytoplasmic receptors. These cytoplasmic receptors, whenever the hormone occupies the receptor, they will enter into the nucleus and they use to prepare the transcription reactions. Coming to the nuclear receptors, example for nuclear receptors are thyroid hormones, that is T3 and T4. This thyroid hormone, it acts directly on the nuclear receptor, whereas cytoplasmic receptors, they, after the attachment of the hormone agonist, that is agonist, they will enter into the nucleus. Coming to the growth hormone. Growth hormone is important for the development of cell growth. It is secreted by the somatotropes of the anterior pituitary. 50% of the anterior pituitary is occupied by the somatotrope cells. So it is a single peptide chain with 191 amino acids having 2 sulfhydryl bridges. The molecular weight of the growth hormone is 22,000 and this growth hormone is structurally related to the prolactin. Prolactin acts on the mammary tissue. All the hormones, they are transported in the blood and they will metabolize in the, especially in the liver and in the target endocrine gland and in tissues on which they act. This is the overall mechanism of metabolism of the hormones. Whereas this growth hormone is secreted by the anterior pituitary and especially 5 to 15 milligrams of the human growth hormone is isolated from one anterior pituitary gland. So the growth hormone secretion is more during exercise and during deep sleep and after meals. And during exercise, sleep, and after meals, the levels of the growth hormone may go up to 25 nanograms per ml. These hormones, the releasing factors are released in nanograms, whereas the anterior pituitary hormones, they are released in micrograms, whereas the target gland, that is pancreas, thyroid, they will release their hormones in milligrams. And the growth hormone secretion per 24 hours is 200 to 2000 micrograms. The growth hormone is, secretion of the growth hormone is under the control of the growth hormone releasing hormone and the growth hormone release inhibitory hormones which are secreted by the hypothalamus. Apart from hypothalamus, the growth hormone inhibitory hormone, that is somatostatin. Somatostatin is secreted by the, apart from hypothalamus, it is secreted by the pancreatic D cells. And what are the stimulus for the growth hormone are hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia, exercise and stress. These will stimulate the pituitary to release the growth hormone. And what are the factors that will inhibit the growth hormone secretion are increased concentration of the free fatty acids, high doses of corticosteroids, and dopamine and its agonists. They will inhibit the secretion of the growth hormone. Coming to the mechanism of action of growth hormone, this growth, all the anterior pituitary hormones, they act through the cell surface receptors. So whenever the hormone comes and occupy the receptor, what happens? The phosphorylation of the enzymes will occur and it will stimulate the target cells to perform their activity. Coming to the hyposecretion. This hyposecretion of the growth hormone will lead to dwarfism in children, and this dwarfism may be because of the genetic factor, or they may be due to the acquired. So it may be due to genetic. Genetic is the incidence of genetic incidence is 0.025%. The acquired, what are the reasons of the acquired hypopituitarism is damage to the pituitary or hypothalamus due to tumor, infection or injury because of the radiation or surgery. And the hypersecretion of the growth hormone. In children, it will leads to gigantism, and in adults, it will leads to acromegaly. After the fusion of the epiphysis, what happened? It will leads to the acromegaly. In adults, there will be fusion of the hypophysis occurs. So hypersecretion of the growth hormone will leads to the acromegaly. And it may also causes diabetes mellitus. Hypersecretion of the growth hormone will cause diabetes mellitus, hypertension, and arthritis. Coming to the pharmacokinetics, the T half of growth hormone is 20 to 25 minutes, and most of the hormone metabolized in the liver, and some hormone it will metabolized in the pituitary, and some it will metabolized in the target tissues. The target tissues are, number one is the liver, bone, and muscles. So the peak level occurs within 2 to 4 hours, and its duration of action will remain up to 36 hours on subcutaneous route of administration. Coming to the functions, what are the functions of the growth hormone? Initially, it will act as insulin. So, what are the actions of insulin? It increases the utilization of the proteins and amino acids by the tissues, peripheral tissues. It is having positive nitrogen balance. And after some time, that is after within hours, it will act like insulin antagonistic action. That is, lipolysis will occur, and there will be increased levels of the free fatty acids at the periphery. So because of this positive nitrogen balance, there will be increased uptake of the amino acids occurs by the growth hormone, and it will lead to the growth and development of the all the organs except brain and eye. Brain and eye are not under the influence of the growth hormone. And it will stimulate the insulin-like growth factors. There are 5 types of insulin-like growth factors, especially this growth hormone, it will stimulate the insulin-like growth factor 1. And this insulin-like growth factor 1, it will exert its actions on muscle, kidney, and other tissues, and acts like autocoid. What is meant by autocoid? Autocoids are the hormones secreted by the specialized cells, and they will have their actions at the same gland. Whereas these hormones, they are synthesized at one place, and they will have their effects at the other far away distance from their synthesis. Whereas autocoids are known as local hormones. They are synthesized by the local tissue, and they are having their effects on locally. That is the difference between the hormone and autocoid. So it will stimulate the insulin-like growth factor 1, and this will act as a autocoid. This insulin-like growth factor will act like autocoid. What are the preparations of growth hormone? Previously, this growth hormone is prepared from the animals because of the antigenic activity. Nowadays, it is prepared by the recombinant DNA technology by utilizing E. coli. So, what are the preparations? Number one is somatropin and somatrem. This somatropin is just like a human growth hormone. That is, it is having 191 amino acids, and it is identical to the human growth hormone. So, it is less antigenic and most commonly used. The half-life of somatropin is only 20 minutes, but its biological half-life is 9 to 17 hours. Biological half-life means the actions performed by the somatropin are 9 to 17 hours. Second group is somatram. Somatram is having one methionine amino acid. So it contains 192 amino acids. This methionine residue at amino terminal is more antigenic. It causes development of antibodies. So it is not used. The somatropin is used. And coming to the other synthetic analogs are sermorelin. This sermorelin is the synthetic recombinant human growth hormone releasing factor. And tesmorelin. Tesmorelin is the synthetic growth hormone releasing. The difference between the tesmorelin and sermorelin is a recombinant human growth hormone releasing factor, whereas tesmorelin is synthetic growth hormone releasing factor. And mecasermin is the recombinant human insulin-like growth factor 1. Coming to the uses. What are the uses of the growth hormone? This growth hormone, it is used to treat the childhood pituitary dwarfism. That is, if there is deficiency of the secretion of the growth hormone by the pituitary, then only it is used. And especially the treatment should start within 2 years of life. If the short stature is there, then you have to use the growth hormone within 2 years of the pediatric age group. So, second, the other conditions like uses of the growth hormone are, they are used for small for gestational age, Turner syndrome, chronic renal failure, and cystic fibrosis, and the muscle wasting related to AIDS. It is also used for the treatment of wound healing in large cutaneous burns in children. And it can be used for the treatment of osteoporosis and chronic bedridden patients. Its use in athletes and idiopathic short stature is irrational, and its use in postoperative and critically ill patients and patients with malignancy may increase mortality. So it is contraindicated in postoperative and critically ill patients and patients with malignancy. Coming to the adverse reactions of the growth hormone, that is lipodystrophy and pain at the site of injection. These are the local adverse reactions. And the adverse reactions of the growth hormone are different in children and adults. What are the adverse reactions in children? Are they will cause nausea, vomiting, and headache, increased intracranial pressure. If there is increased intracranial pressure within first 8 weeks, they will lead to papilledema and visual disturbances. So if there is any increased intracranial pressure, the children will suffer with papilledema and visual disturbances. And leukemia, hyperglycemia. This hyperglycemia due to its anti-insulin effect. These are the adverse effects of the occurs in children. And what are the adverse effects occurs in adults? Those are peripheral edema, headache, arthralgia, myalgia, and carpal tunnel syndrome. Especially this carpal tunnel syndrome is observed in obese and elderly patients. And there will be unmasking of the thyroid stimulating hormone deficiency. So what happens? It will lead to hypothyroid. The deficiency of the thyroid stimulating hormone will lead to hypothyroidism. So this growth hormone, it unmasks the deficiency of the thyroid stimulating hormone and leads to hypothyroidism. The sermorelin, the synthetic recombinant human growth hormone releasing hormone. So it is used for the diagnostic purpose to differentiate whether dwarfism is due to pituitary disease or hypothalamic disease. So this sermorelin is not used for therapeutic purpose. It is used only for the diagnostic purpose to differentiate between the whether the deficiency is because of the hypothalamus or the pituitary. And coming to the desmorelin, it is a synthetic growth hormone releasing hormone. It is used to treat HIV associated lipodystrophy. The mecasermin. Mecasermin is the recombinant human insulin growth factor 1. This mecasermin is used to treat severe insulin growth factor 1 deficiency and growth failure patients resistant to growth hormone. This mecasermin is contraindicated in patients with closed epiphysis. The common adverse effect of this mecasermin and kidney on prolonged use. Coming to the growth hormone inhibitors. These are the growth hormone inhibitor is somatostatin. It is a peptide consists of 14 amino acids. It inhibits the release of the growth hormone and other hormones such as prolactin, thyroid stimulating hormone, insulin, glucagon, and gastrin. Insulin, glucagon, these are released by the pancreas. So this somatostatin, it will inhibit the release of the growth hormone by the pituitary. And apart from growth hormone, it also inhibits the release of the prolactin, thyroid stimulating hormone by the anterior pituitary, and insulin, glucagon by the pancreas, and gastrin by the gastric cells. Apart from, it also inhibits the secretions of the biliary, pancreatic, and gastric glands. And it causes vasoconstriction of hepatic, splanchnic, and renal blood vessels. Because of this property, it is used in the treatment of the esophageal ulcers, bleeding esophageal ulcers, and gastric ulcers. And its T half is 3 to 6 minutes. Coming the uses, bleeding. Number 1 is the bleeding peptic ulcer, esophageal varices, preoperative prophylaxis in pancreatic surgery because due to its vasoconstrictor effect. And it is also used in diabetic ketoacidosis. It is as an adjuvant. It is not the drug of choice in diabetic ketoacidosis. The drug of choice is insulin and corticosteroids. And also to control the upper GI bleeding and to treat the acromegaly because of its shorter T half and non-specific actions. Why? Because it is having its actions on splanchnic, renal, and esophageal blood vessels. Because of its non-specific actions and shorter duration of action, the analogs are developed. What are the analogs of the somatostatin? Those are octreotide, vapriotide, lanreotide, seglitide, and pasireotide. So coming to the octreotide, it is more potent than somatostatin. That is, it is 45 times more potent than somatostatin and most widely used because of its longer acting. That is, the T half of octreotide is 80 minutes, and it is having less effect on insulin release, and the peak effect achieved within 30 minutes, and its duration of action is up to 12 hours. What are the uses of the analogs of the somatostatin? It is used especially in acromegaly and diabetic diarrhea. And also hormone secreting tumors such as gastrinoma, carcinoid syndrome, glucagonoma, VIP secreting adenomas. And the dose of the analogs, that is the dose is 50 to 200 micrograms subcutaneously up to 500 micrograms 3 times a day. It should be given after oral glucose tolerance test. Fourth one is for bleeding esophageal varices. The dose for the treatment of bleeding esophageal varices is 100 micrograms as bolus IV, and then 25 to 50 micrograms per hour. And another preparation, that is octreotide acetate, is available. It is a depot preparation. It is having longer duration of action. The dose is 20 to 40 milligrams once in a month intramuscularly. And it causes altered blood glucose level and can also leads to goiter. Vitamin B12 deficiency leads to vitamin B12 deficiency on prolonged use. The other adverse effects are pain at the site of injection, GI disturbances, gallstones, and postprandial hyperglycemia. The second analog is lanreotide. The actions of the lanreotide are similar to that of the octreotide, but this lanreotide is having longer duration of action. It is used to treatment of acromegaly and thyroid tumors. The dose of the lanreotide is 30 milligrams intramuscularly every 14 days. Or the dose, if the dose is 60 milligrams, can use once in a month. Another analog is pasireotide. It is somatostatin analog. It is having highest affinity to the somatostatin receptor. So it is used to treat inoperable cases of Cushing's disease and acromegaly. Pasireotide. Coming to the growth hormone receptor antagonist, that is pegvisomant. Pegvisomant is a pegylated growth hormone receptor antagonist. Blocks the actions of the growth hormone by binding with the growth hormone receptors. It normalizes the level of the insulin-like growth factor 1 in all cases of acromegaly. So it has to be a reserved drug. It has to be used in treatment of acromegaly where there is resistance to the other drugs. It should not be used routinely. It is a reserved drug to treat acromegaly resistant to the other drugs. Specific antibodies may develop against it, but incidence of tachyphylaxis is not seen. What is tachyphylaxis? Tachyphylaxis means acute tolerance. So specific antibodies may develop, but there are no chances of the acute tolerance. And the monitoring of the pituitary by MRI and liver function tests are needed. Why? Because it is contraindicated in increased levels of the liver transaminase enzymes. That's why the monitoring of the liver function tests is needed before giving this pegvisomant. The dose is 40 milligrams as loading dose subcutaneously, followed by 10 milligrams once a day. The dose has to be adjusted on the basis of the insulin-like growth factor 1 levels. If the growth factor 1 levels are sufficient, the dose has to be decreased. And if the insulin-like growth factor 1 levels are decreased, the dose has to be increased. Coming to the next hormone, that is prolactin. Prolactin is secreted by the lactotrophs of the or mammotrophs of the anterior pituitary. These cells will increase in number. These lactotrophs, they will increase in number during pregnancy and under the influence of the estrogens. is a single chain peptide with 199 amino acids and molecular weight is 23,000. It is structurally related to the growth hormone and placental lactose. What are the functions of prolactin? Its main function of prolactin is proliferation and differentiation of the ductal and lobular epithelium of the mammary gland. So it is important for the development, and especially prolactin levels are more during pregnancy, and they will help in the proliferation of the mammary tissue. The second function is it controls the production and secretion of the milk. Also, it inhibits the release of the gonadotropins. Whenever the prolactin levels are increased, the gonadotropins, the release of the gonadotropins will suppress. So there will be lactational amenorrhea during the lactational period. So this gonadal suppression is through the hypothalamo-pituitary gonadal axis. And during lactation, there will be inhibition of the ovulation. So it will lead to, it acts like contraception during lactation. And what are the hypersecretion of the prolactin will leads to hyperprolactinemia. The causes of hyperprolactinemia are disorders of hypothalamus, pituitary hypothyroidism, prolactin secreting pituitary tumors, that is both micro and macroadenoma. If the tumor diameter is less than 1 centimeter, it is a microadenoma. If the tumor diameter is more than 1 centimeter, it is macroadenoma. So both micro and macroadenomas of the pituitary, renal failure, and drug induced. The drugs which will induce the secretion of the prolactin are the antipsychotic drugs like chlorpromazine and haloperidol. So these hyperprolactinemias, they will cause galactorrhea, amenorrhea, and infertility in females, and loss of libido, impotence, and infertility in males. If it is because of the tumors in the pituitary, it will lead to headache and visual disturbances. It is because of the drugs, there will not be any visual disturbances. And coming to the what are the treatments of the hyperprolactinemia? If it is because of the tumor, is treated by either surgical or radiation therapy, or if it is not because of the tumors, medical treatment is necessary. Uh, Drugs which are useful to treat hyperprolactinemia are dopaminergic agonist drugs like bromocriptine and cabergoline. Bromocriptine. Coming to the bromocriptine, it is the most commonly used drug. It inhibits the prolactin secretion both spontaneously and prolactinemia induced by the thyrotropin releasing hormone. Its oral absorption is only 30%. Its bioavailability is only 7%. Its T-half is 2 to 8 hours. Metabolites are excreted in bile. So it will undergo enterohepatic circulation. And what are the side effects of this bromocriptine? Bromocriptine, the side effects like nausea, vomiting, and headache are more with the bromocriptine. That's why the dose has to be initially given in small quantities and gradually it has to be increased to avoid the adverse effects. And due to its alpha blocking activity, will leads to postural hypotension. So we have to advise the patient while taking the bromocriptine, the patient has to take the drug in sitting position. It leads to nasal congestion, vasospasm of the distal arteries. This vasocongestion, nasal congestion, and vasospasm of distal arteries will occur very rarely. And on prolonged use, will leads to adverse effects related to CNS, like insomnia, nightmares, hallucinations, and psychosis. Coming to the cabergoline, its actions are similar to bromocriptine but with less adverse effects. It is having more affinity and selectivity. The bromocriptine is less selective. It will act on, apart from prolactin receptors, it will act on alpha receptors. So this cabergoline, its activity is selective and it is having more affinity towards the D2 receptors. That is, its efficacy is 5 times more than the bromocriptine. The T half of the cabergoline is more than 80 hours. It is having less adverse effects, but hypotension is present. What are the uses of the bromocriptine and cabergoline? It is used to treat the hyperprolactinemia. Bromocriptine, the dose of the bromocriptine is initially it has to given by 1.5 milligrams and gradual once a daily, and then it has to be given 1.25 milligrams twice daily up to 1 week, and after that the dose has to be increased slowly and it can be given up to 5 milligrams per day, whereas the dose of the cabergoline is 0.25 milligrams to 1 milligram per day. This is also used, these drugs are also used to treat acromegaly, and the dose in acromegaly is 20 milligrams. And can be used in Parkinson's disease. There will be dopamine deficiency is there in Parkinson's disease. This bromocriptine can be used in Parkinson's disease. And previously they used this bromocriptine in type 2 diabetes mellitus as adjuvant. It can also be used to treat hepatic coma. With this, I have completed the introduction to endocrines and anterior pituitary hormones. Go through the textbook, and if you are having any doubts, please ask me.